Romance scams work because we are all human and we can all be manipulated. These scams exploit people who are lonely or who are simply looking for love. The criminals running these scams know which psychological buttons to push, and they share these tricks knowing that they work with each other. The scammers running romance scams are usually working as part of well-organized criminal gangs, and they share literal playbooks with one another to be as successful as they can scamming us. When I say playbook, what do I actually mean? Well, think about it like this. Many years ago, I worked in a call center, and when customers would ring, I had a handbook that I could use to answer their questions. So if a customer queried their bill, it would tell me to turn to page 5 to find the answers to help them. Now, scammers use the same kind of handbook, but not to help the people they're communicating with, but to be more successful with their scam. So for example, it will say, if your target questions why you need the money you're asking for, turn to page 11 for options of what you can tell them. If they ask, when am I going to see you in person rather than just online, turn to page 14 so you can evade their answers. That is how professional these scams are. The scammers running romance fraud will often spend many months on their targets, love bombing them with attention and flattery to build up that relationship and gain their trust. They may use sympathy to try and get money from you. So they may tell you, for example, that they need help paying medical bills, and they will ask you for some money, or have built up the relationship with you where actually they know you will offer them the money. The scammers will sometimes play on the hope of their target. So they will say things like, oh, if only I could afford it, I would come and visit you. Or, could you pay for a flight so that I can finally come to see you and we can be united in person? So there is powerful psychology at play here. The victims are susceptible to what is known as sunk cost fallacy. They will think, well, I've spent this much time and attention and maybe money already on this person who I believe I'm in a relationship with. I've invested all this already, so why don't I just spend that much more to try and get them to come and see me or to help them in their life? Confirmation bias also plays its part because victims can see any ambiguous information as confirming their belief that the relationship is real. They will be looking out for signs and finding signs maybe where there aren't any or where the evidence is very slim. And of course, these scams work because the people behind them are trained, they are experienced, they are professional scammers who spend a lot of time doing this. And because they share tactics and strategies with one another, they're using techniques that they know have worked before and can work again. With their playbook of tactics, they will use sympathy, they will use flattery, they will use attention and love bombing. They will run hot and cold with their targets in different times, in different ways, to make their target feel as if they are in a real relationship with them. There is often a psychological impact on victims of social engineering and fraud of all different kinds. But with romance fraud, there is a double hit of that psychological impact. Victims often not only experience financial loss, but they also experience the loss of a relationship that to them was very real. Victims can often be traumatized, and research shows that they can experience symptoms that are like post-traumatic stress. In some studies, victims have described the loss and the discovery that it was a fraud of being like a death to them, experiencing grief to that degree, and some have said that they even contemplated suicide after this terrible experience. Victims, unfortunately, can feel ashamed, and sometimes this can be reinforced if they have a negative response when they talk to friends or family, or even just from perceptions in wider society. Romance scams remind us of the importance of rooting our approach to cybersecurity in empathy and compassion. The more we attach any sense of shame to being a victim of fraud of any kind, including romance fraud, the less people will engage with us, the less they will report these things happening, and the less awareness there will be out there. It's really important that we help people spot the signs of these scams and that we approach anybody who has experienced a scam like this with empathy and with compassion. If you have been a victim of romance fraud yourself, then I want you to treat yourself with compassion and to understand that this does not make you stupid. It is nothing to be ashamed of. It simply makes you human.